All right, how's it going? So I want to have a little talk about what blue-green deployments are and how you can use them on your production system to basically give you some more flexibility about when and how you do deployments. This is something that we do at my current project at work, and I kind of wanted to share with you our setup. This isn't like the holy grail setup. This isn't the silver bullet of how you can do blue-green deployments. This is one approach, and it seems like it works pretty well for our project. So hopefully, if you're watching this, you can kind of learn from what I'm showing you. All right, so let's kind of talk about like what exactly is a blue-green deployment and why would you want it. So when you're deploying a new version of your application, if you're using like a next, not next, but like let's say you're using like an express service or some type of running server, typically that server has to be stopped and restarted, right? And when you stop a server, you're basically killing all the connections, or you have to kind of limit or prevent any more connections from hitting that box. Wait until all the requests finish, and then you can turn that box off. You can then deploy the newer version of your software, turn the box on, start allowing connections to come in, right? And most of these days, like any automated service will do all that for you. It's kind of abstracted away. You don't have to know how to do that unless you're like doing your own DevOps setup. And for whatever reason, you have to roll all that stuff yourself. But another approach, instead of just like turning off the box and restarting it with a newer version, is you actually have two versions of the application. You have an older version, and the users are currently connected to this box, getting their requests, processing their requests, and then you deploy alongside of that another version, version +1, that doesn't take any requests yet, but it's running, it's operational, and at some point you basically route all the traffic from your blue color to your green color. So we use Amazon at our job, and we do a lot of like API gateways, serverless with Lambdas, and we use DynamoDB for our database. So I want to kind of share with you how that kind of works. And let's just see if we can kind of talk about this and maybe you can learn something from it. So I'm gonna go ahead and put Dynamo here because that is the database that we store all of our data. And for a blue-green deployment, typically both your color blue and your color green will point to the same database, and they'll both use that same data. But let's just go ahead and draw some circles, right? Circles are always kind of cool. And we're going to have circles that kind of designate our Lambdas and our API gateway. In fact, I think I could probably find some Amazon library here. Let me see if I can find something. I'm going to go and type in like AWS. Hopefully there's some AWS architecture icons, and those will show up. So this might make more sense if I actually show you the real Amazon icons. I kind of like this. Let me change this out. All right, so DynamoDB, that is our database. And then what we're doing on our project is, let's see if I can find a bunch of different stuff. So everything we do is with Lambdas. So if I can find a Lambda, and then let's see if I can also find API Gateway, because API Gateway is a service you can kind of put in front of your Lambdas to accept HTTP requests. Here we go. And we're going to kind of just walk you through how some of this stuff works. And if you have a better idea about how we could do blue-greens, let us know. I'm always curious to know if there's better approaches. And I guarantee you there are things that are already set up in Amazon that make this a lot easier. But we're using a bunch of Terraform, which is infrastructure as code, to kind of do all this. I'm looking for Route 53. Can't tell if I'm blind or they don't have Route 53 here for some reason. Don't know why they wouldn't have Route 53. Let me see if there's another Amazon pack of things. Architecture icons, serverless icons. I don't even know what the Route 53 icon is. Route 53 icon. It looks like a tree. Cool. Let me click on this one and see if we can get access to that as well. Well, that sucks. Anyway, so I'll just put a box here. It's just like, it's not that big of a deal. I'll just put a box here, and we're going to say Route 53. And what we do when we're doing a blue-green deployment is we have basically two applications that are running in parallel. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this code over here, and we have I'll say a blue. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do this. I'm going to put this whole thing here. And this is going to be called our blue color. And then we'll have a green. And maybe I can send it to the back because it's kind of occluding. How do I send to the back? Send to back. That doesn't really help. So hopefully it's not too hard to see, but you get the picture. We have an API gateway here that talks to lambdas. Those lambdas will scale up based on traffic. They all kind of communicate with the database to get their data, do some computations, and then that gets sent back to the user. So let's just go ahead and draw the user real quick. I'll do a user here. And how we have our Route 53 set up, all right, I mean, how we have our blue-green deployment set up for the API at least is this Route 53. It's another Amazon service where you can kind of set up records and have those records point to different services, right? So when I say records, I mean like example.com, right? Or excelladraw.com. You can have a domain set up in Route 53 or a subdomain, and you can point that domain to either a API gateway or you can point it to something else. So in this scenario, I'm going to make these solid because we're going to pretend that we're already on the color blue, right? So how a blue-green deployment works is basically your users are all going to be hitting that domain here, and they're going to be saying, just go to like example.com, and that's going to basically resolve to Amazon's DNS. Route 53 is going to see that a user is trying to go to example.com. That's going to determine what API endpoint it needs to hit. In our case, we have configured Route 53 to go to our blue color, which is going to hit another API gateway custom domain here. That's going to hit a Lambda, might talk to the database, and that's going to send the request back. So you can have a bunch of users all using the application, and they're all hitting blue. And the cool thing about this setup is when you decide that you need to do a code update, what you can do is, you might have like Circle CI or some other pipeline. I'll just put like a circle that says CI/CD. So typically there's like a CI/CD pipeline where you commit some code to your Git repo. That's going to kick off a build. It's going to do your tests. It's going to finally do a deployment. And what we tell it to do is deploy to the next color, right, which would be the green. So this CI/CD pipeline, in our case, we're using Circle CI. But you can use Travis CI, you can use Jenkins, you can use GoCD or whatever else is out there. But this thing will build when we're doing like a deployment, and it's going to basically say, I need to deploy all the resources, deploy new stuff here, right? So deploy all the new stuff to the green color because that is the inactive color. It's not being used. So you can kind of change an entire environment, which is going to, update lambdas. It's going to update API gateways. It's going to update all this other stuff that you might have set up. And I will say that we do this with Terraform. I'm going to say Terraform is an infrastructure as code tool. So basically you write a bunch of code, and that code is telling Amazon what to provision, how to configure it, whatnot. So this will basically, Circle will see the changes in the code, run Terraform, and Terraform knows that we just need to update the deploying color, which is green. Okay, so while this process is happening, all the users are still hitting the green API gateway. They're still hitting all the green lambdas that might be running older versions of the code, but they're still hitting a shared database. I'm not even going to talk about migrations because that's just going to be a whole nother topic. But at some point, what happens is at the end of this deployment, there's another step where we basically tell Route 53 and we say, switch all users over to green. Okay. So this one will happen first, like we'll deploy the new stuff, and then over here we switch all the new users over to green. And when this switch happens, it might take, a second or two, or not a second or two, it might take like 60 seconds or whatever. It depends on the, I think the time to live on your record here. If you have it set to 60 seconds, then your users may still hit the old color for up to 60 seconds, 5 minutes, it doesn't really matter. But the idea is now that over time, at some point, when this thing finally tells users to hit a different target, it is going to just basically swap everyone out. So everyone is now going to be hitting a new color here. The old color is just going to be sitting there. It can still accept traffic basically until you delete that. But all of these technically aren't being called. So the solid line has switched all the traffic to the green color, and this old color is just sitting around. You could potentially still hit the old code if you wanted to, but you probably don't want to. You probably want to come back here and just turn off your gateway so that people can't hit the old lambdas. or you can just go ahead and do like a terraform destroy and blow away that entire color if you want to. There's a lot of different ways that you can do this. In regards to speed, we just keep this stuff running and we just disable the API gateway so that people can't actually hit it if they were to have an old URL after, a couple of minutes. We don't want people hitting the old code. But now it's going to the new color, running the new version of the code, still hitting the old database. And it's kind of like a, a seamless deploy where people don't notice any downtime. Now, this is kind of like a simple example. When you do changes that may potentially need database migration, stuff gets a lot more complicated because you can't have users like updating. You can't really have users potentially fetching and updating older records of your data model if you made a migration where you have stuff that needs to be required. So there's kind of some planning that needs to go on with your code base to make sure that, like, if you do have a need to change your data models, change, columns or tables or whatever, or change required fields, that old data is not like overriding the new data that this stuff might be, putting in. So I just wanted to kind of share with you our blue-green deployment, and hopefully you can kind of take some tips away from how we do it. If I left anything off, like, let me know. We also do this exact same process for our UI. So we'll have like, basically imagine this entire thing copied and pasted twice, but instead of API gateway, we have Cloudfront. So we'll have, let's see if Cloudfront is here. All right, Cloudfront. So if you imagine, this probably would have been more accurate if I did this. We have Cloudfront in front of both of these. And now I'm kind of regretting jumping right into showing this diagram, because this is actually, I think, how we kind of do it at our current project. We have Cloudfront, where when the user tries to hit, example.com, it's going to load either one of these Cloudfront distributions, which will either have the old version of the UI or the new version of the UI. And at some point when the color switch happens, we also switch the users over. In fact, let me kind of expand this. There's more resources I'm not showing here. Like there's, a green bucket and a blue bucket to where you have your UI stored. But we basically have two different Cloudfront distributions, one for blue, one for green. And we switch the users over to the one that is currently active. And then at some point we'll switch them over to the one that's being deployed. I draw a arrow here. Okay, so now we're taking it like a step further. I'm kind of showing you like how the UI also fits into this whole blue-green deployment. We do like a monolithic deployment. So we deploy all the new UI changes, we deploy all the new API changes, and we kind of switch all the users over to the new setup. Now, the benefit of doing this is you can do testing, right? So in CI/CD, after this stuff has been deployed, in fact, if I change this to a 3, there's another step that actually kind of happens here where we do a bunch of testing. Okay, so let me just go ahead and put a 2 here, test deploying color. So before you actually switch all the users to your new environment, you want to actually verify that the deployment worked well. So we have a bunch of what we call smoke tests, which inside of Circle CI, we basically do a bunch of requests. We load up Cypress, we click through the UI, make sure you can log in, make sure you can do different things. And if the smoke tests all pass, that's when we, switch the colors over. Okay. So again, this is like a fully automated process. It's kind of seamless. You just press that deploy button and eventually all the users are going to go over to your new color. Now, I guarantee there's something that I'm messing up in this diagram because I kind of just went off memory. But I think that's kind of how we do it. But yeah, if you do blue-green deployments at your job or your work, or you know more about it and you have a different idea about how you can do it, let me know. I'm curious to hear like what you guys do. But if you enjoyed watching this, join my Discord if you want to talk to me directly and ask me questions. Let me know that you like this video and be part of the community on my Discord. Have a good day and happy coding.